Oh, hello, hello.
Can you
How are
hear
you?
me?
Is it Joe or Joseph? Do you prefer?
Let's go with Joe.
I love it. Let's go with Joe.
Joseph goes on the credits
I
for
see.
me.
Okay. Very informal conversation. Hey, thanks for taking the time today, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
It's my pleasure.
We're here to talk about all things Chucky.
Well, yeah, let's get to it. Let's get to it. So you've been around for almost as long as I have. Your career starts a little before the turn of the century. You used
Yeah.
to open for Bob Seger. You've scored such hits as Xena, Hercules, American Gothic. Let me do a real quick polar bear question here. I want to break the ice. My crack research team tells me that you're from the Detroit suburbs, right? So I'd like to know
I
what
was
part.
actually I was actually born in Detroit. I was a teenager in Detroit.
Oh
So
boy.
yeah, born and raised in the city for sure.
Wow, that's cool. I was born, I'm from the suburbs myself, downriver, Wyandotte,
Oh
Woodhaven. I
yes,
don't know. I'm familiar with those guys.
absolutely.
One of my early jobs was decorating the windows for Hudson's on Michigan Avenue for the Thanksgiving Day
Wow.
parade
When Hudson's was there.
when it
Well,
was still, yeah.
my first music lessons were next door at Grinnell's
Wow.
as a kid, and then I taught as a student. I taught classical guitar at Grinnell's on the weekends.
Right
Hmm.
on. So when you go back home, I don't know if you live there now, but when you go back home, what's your favorite Detroit based food that you like to get? What's something that you run to that you can't get anywhere else?
Oh well, Detroit style pizza, of course. Now
Mm,
it's making uh, 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 an outing over throughout the country, but yeah, Detroit style pizza, of course, as it originated from Hamtramck.
mm-hmm,
Uh,
mm-hmm,
Getting into some deep Detroit stuff here. That's for sure.
right.
Um, you know, the
I
classics, the Detroit classics, Verner's Ginger Ale,
right.
Better Made potato chips.
Oh, I get those sent out to me. I'm in Southern California. I get those sent to me about once a year, a big case of them of Better Made.
Wonderful. National Coney Island. Sam Raimi he was involved in trying to get a Detroit style Coney Island. They had it running with a number of Detroit investors on Hollywood Boulevard near Amoeba. It ran for a few years, but it didn't take.
Hmm.
I guess it's a regional thing.
Maybe. I always thought, again, I'm in San Diego, and I always thought if I was going to open a restaurant, that's what it would be, like an old style Coney Island. You can't really get a good one out here on the West Coast, in my opinion.
No, you don't really see them. They're more of a Midwest phenomenon for sure,
Yeah,
and they're all over here. So,
right.
yes, yes, we have our regional favorites for sure.
For sure, for sure. So going back way back then when you were teaching guitar and all that stuff as a student, what got you out of teaching and playing for Bob Seger into composing?
Well, I was always interested in the how of music. Um, so I'd be the kid in the band that would be wearing out the vinyl to learn all the parts to show it to all the kids so we could have a band. Um, and those bands got better, and we've hooked up with better players. And as tweens, we had a band mom who had a band van with a milk truck that would cart us around. And there were a lot of clubs back in the classic Detroit rock days where you could have a tween band be the second warm up for all the regional bands that went on to national stardom, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So went through that period. So I got my rock and roll fixed out pretty early, and then moved into jazz, and always had studied piano and was in the church choir, and just a pretty comprehensive music education. And was a comp lit major initially in college, but the music just wouldn't let go. And then when I got offered to write the first Evil Dead score, um, I was still in school, and I realized this was a way to put all my interests together, to be a storyteller and to sort of have a very, you know, comprehensive view of what music is and its function in the world. So, yeah.
So it was Evil Dead that got you into. Let's put a pin in that. I want to circle back to Evil Dead,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
let's dive into Chucky. You've been the main musical voice for a little while now. Curse of Chucky, The Cult of Chucky, and now the series,
Yeah.
which has some of the coolest and inspired goriest kills that I've seen in a TV show or even in a movie for a long time. Um, it's a direct sequel to Cult, and it came out right about the time, or I mean, it came out recently, but I think you guys were in production. I want to know, did COVID or the lockdown affect the production, or at least on your end at all, or were you?
Well, yeah. Well, when Don could start, Don Mancini is the showrunner, the original creator, and as you mentioned, we met 2 films ago and
Mhm.
have been working together ever since. And the series was in the works for a long time, but when you had COVID and also the creation of Peacock for Universal,
Right.
um, all of those things took a while for us to get up and running. And Don had told me, for example, he had not met the cast in person until, I don't know, like days before shooting, because they had to go to Toronto and they had all quarantined for 2 weeks. And finally got to be able to meet the cast in person, really. So it was an interesting process. So yeah, yes, it did hold up. Chucky probably could have been on the air a couple of years ago.
Sure, sure. What do you think? What is it about Chucky that makes him last in the pop culture?
Well, that's a good question. I think that there are just, you know, you figure out why are some of these sort of universal monsters iconic? What Frankenstein and werewolf and Dracula and Chucky. Uh, I think one of the reasons Chucky continues to thrill, if you will, is that sort of combination of preternatural evil in a child's toy with the most cynical, foul-mouthed creature you could imagine.
Mhm.
And I think Don's master stroke here in the series is that he placed this sort of, the symbol of chaos. Chucky is a metaphor for chaos, I think. Uh, and he placed it in the suburban middle school in Hackensack, New Jersey, and what that does to these families and these kids and their lives that already have enough to deal with, if you will. Um, and I think that's what's fascinating, and I think that's why the series has really done very, very well. You probably know we've been renewed
Right.
for a second season. That news came a few weeks ago. So
What's your process for composing for an episode? Obviously, you have the theme song. Do you work from a script beforehand, or do you have some ideas going in and wait to see the actual visuals? When do you get involved?
I kind of I do see the scripts ahead of time. I mean, as you mentioned, this has been a while in the works. I think I read the pilot script, I don't know, over 2 years ago,
Hmm.
and I was impressed with uh, one, that there was enough interest for the cult fans to keep them totally engaged. This suggestion of the backstory of how Chucky became Chucky. Uh, the idea of introducing it to a new generation to have it actually be a YA series. And then that really wonderful thing in the first episode where Chucky is actually the ventriloquist uh,
Yeah.
controlling the kid at the talent show. So I was very impressed with that. The process is, I think, for a series, because everything moves so fast, you just wait to see what's been shot, what the editors have come up with, and how to tie it all together. I think that's my function in spotting, is to look for the ways where I can glue this all together. um, what's important to keep the drama moving. There's a lot of, as you probably have seen, there's a lot of licensed songs
Hmm.
because we do have that sort of youth element and audience, and there's the Go-Go's and Billie Eilish and, you know, um, all these other songs that get thrown into the mix, and how to write in and out of them, try to do that seamlessly, and in some cases weave them together, and, to keep the dread going, to keep the tension up, because that's the whole idea. You never know when it's going to jump off, and when Chucky's going to strike.
Do you get to write, like I always reference the Batman 66 show with all the different stings and themes for the villains and everybody? Does different characters, do you compose different stings or musical cues for different characters for the show?
No, well, I think not so much that. Um, there is an overriding theme that gets developed, and it's really only hinted at for many episodes. But our lead character Jake is gay, and he has his boyfriend, and the development of their relationship is kind of hinted at in the first episode when Devin plays piano at the talent show. So the idea that Devin's associated with the piano, and it's really the only time in the series where I will use a straight keyboard piano sound, is when they're together. And as it plays actually into a song in the fifth episode, almost hinting at that sort of pop style of piano playing. Um, Other than that, you mentioned the iconic Chucky theme, which actually comes from Child's Play 2, which is most helpful in the relationship between Chucky and the sort of autistic younger sister, Caroline. Um, the Chucky, when Chucky has the voice of the doll, the sort of the feigned innocence of that works pretty well for that. I wrote a theme because when I came on board, Don really said that there hadn't been any really consistent uh, use of music throughout the previous films. So I wrote a theme which we happen to keep using, and that is done on a toy piano, but it implies something more sinister. So those are pieces of music that kind of work for that. And then this episode, in these episodes, there is the backstory of Tiffany, of the Jennifer Tilly character.
Mhm.
And she comes off to me as sort of a classic Hollywood vamp, if you will. So there's something sort of dangerously sexy about her. So that's another theme that gets played sometimes with strings, sometimes on a sort of an e-bowed guitar, fretless guitar, a sultry kind of melody. So those are fragments that do get woven throughout the episodes.
What do you have a favorite Chucky kill from the show?
Well, it's a line. It's a line from Cult of Chucky that ended up on a poster that didn't get printed. But Cult of Chucky takes place in an asylum, and Don had a poster which they didn't use, but it was funny. It was Chucky holding a big syringe, and with the caption, "You may feel a little prick," and which is a line he uses to kill the detective off with
Yeah,
fistfuls of used syringes. Uh,
that's
like
good.
that's a
Yeah.
good one.
Uh, I can see in your background there a lot of guitars, a lot of instruments. I assume this is maybe where you perform or record your composing. But
Yeah, yeah. This is where the
I
magic happens.
what I don't see where the magic happens. What I don't see is a Chucky doll. Do you have a screen used or any sort of representation of Chucky in the home?
Well, what I have is, yeah, I do have something back here. Give me a sec. I do have something. I actually had positioned this in a way that I took a picture. I do have a Chucky pillow.
All right. Yeah.
I have a Chucky pillow. And I also have the toy piano that I used for the initial theme. I have some stickers I want to put on it, but you know.
Right.
And I don't have the last note here, but I had to create it with a sample. It goes up a step from that.
Right.
So yeah.
Very cool.
This guy. I have more stickers coming. Don gave me a Child's Play 2 doll in the case, and he says, "Don't you dare open it. It's worth hundreds." So,
Right.
and I see them. I see those artifacts online. I mean, they're quite collector's items.
Yeah, they get up there. Let's talk about what some people online are calling the pride of Chucky. The franchise itself seems to be the first horror icon to fully embrace the LGBTQ community. Do you have any thoughts on how that's important to the character and the longevity of the franchise?
Well, I think it's very interesting that it is being received in that way. I think that you know, Don certainly has always implied it, and then I think that, you know, there are, especially in this season, there are autobiographical elements
Okay.
for Don, and I think that is, you know, that's, yeah, I think it's important that it's incorporated into this universe as well, because again, you know, it's Chucky's chaos, and you have people living their lives, and what that does to relationships, and what that does, whatever their, you know, whatever their orientation is. So I think it's that it's represented in a whole universe like this. I think it's important, and it's it's just a given. It's completely as a given, and
Right.
you see in a situation that um, it's the reason for Chucky's father's death, and it's um, but it's also you have other parents that are completely accepting, and so you get the full spectrum of life. There are these elements of reality that are thrown into this, and I try to treat them in a way so that they don't really come off as melodrama, that they actually come off as real moments, even though there's no way you can take the universe of Chucky totally seriously.
Right. Right.
But you're also trying not to be dismissive of it. It's kind of a fine line. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I was pretty impressed by the way they dealt with it. Like it's not really made a huge deal other than the characters reacting to it. It's just very matter of fact that he is gay, and you know his dad doesn't like it, and that doesn't work out so well for him, right?
Well, the confrontation there in the first episode, there's a confrontation with his father, who's an alcoholic, and it's a very, very emotional scene. It's a very angry scene. I don't like to write music for those types of scenes. I just think it's unnecessary. And but there was this need that felt that it had to be underscored. And so the way I chose to deal with it, and everybody was happy with, was Chucky's dad's watching television when Jake enters the room. He's drinking and watching television. So I said, well, what if he happens to be watching an old movie that has this kind of melodramatic score in it? And it just so happens that the score that's on the television is actually mirroring what's going on. So when he grabs Jake and throws him against the wall, it's very dramatic. You know, it's very over the top, as though you were seeing something in a post-war era. And Jake's ambivalence that he's left his father alone with Chucky, because we know what's going to happen next. So it's handled in that type of fashion, you know, and I would call it a creative fashion. And so we do get to accomplish that, but it's on a little bit more of an artistic level, if you will.
Yeah. That's an interesting approach. Yeah. Let's circle back to Evil Dead a little bit. I mean, I knew that was one of your first movies. I didn't know that's what got you into composing. So how did you go to school? Did you go to San Diego State with Sam? How did you get involved in the Evil Dead
Yeah, no,
franchise?
yeah, I was always into composing. I mean, I had a jazz band, and the reason for the jazz band is again to play music that I wrote, and also to learn because again, I grew up in Detroit. So I got my jazz chops together in the city of Detroit because we have a lot of great jazz musicians here. A lot of the musicians that were left behind when Motown left in the early 70s remained in Detroit. And what was left for them was to teach and play gigs. And so that was around the time I was coming up. So I learned from them. But I was also studying composition. I also studied classical guitar and, had a double major in that. So I've always had like a foot in popular music and a foot in sort of the academic world. And again, that leads you very, very well into being a film composer because you have to have enough, chops in both areas to be able to handle an assignment.
Mhm. So was like the stories I've always heard, obviously I don't know anybody, but like it's a pretty ragtag group of guys got together and knocked out this very low budget movie. So were you on the set at all? Did you have any stories about the Evil Dead that you can share or the early days of
No, no,
filmmaking?
I've only heard that they went to Tennessee. They went to
Tennessee.
Tennessee
Mhm.
to shoot it. And no, it was after that. But there was still a lot to be done in post-production. The film wasn't really complete. Um, how I was brought in because there was someone that I'd become acquainted with who was actually a filmmaker making films for the Department of Transportation that somehow got involved in helping the boys, we called them the boys back then, um, raise money for post and to finish the film. And so they had a little office next to a magic shop, uh, action figures on the windowsills, a little boilerplate to make freeze-dried coffee. Drawing the picture here.
Right.
And
Very
so
low.
I met them, and they said, "Can you make some scary music?" And I went, "Yeah, sure." Uh, that I could do. What I didn't know was anything about the craft of putting music to picture, but I had to figure it out. And in those days, the tools were quite primitive. Um, it was rewinding a videotape player that you never knew where it was going to shuttle back to. The timings had to be done with stopwatches. It was all in a calculator and drew X's for clicks on the music paper. And, somehow it all worked out. But when I saw the final result, I said, this is it. I love this. This is great to see it all come together on a big screen.
Yeah, you certainly got a grip on it since then. Were you um did you have any influence or inspire or responsible for like some of those iconic I'm thinking of the overhead shot where they're going down the hallway passing the 2x4, the beams, right? Did you influence those at all?
Well, I think there was some sort of complementing of what was going on, but the sound designer for Evil Dead is Bruce Campbell,
Hmm.
with Sam's input. So they had ideas. The sound of the voice of the Force at the beginning is Sam through a harmonizer growling in with echo. Whatever was they're very
Hmm.
primitive devices in those days. Um, I rewrote the score and we perform it occasionally. And because the sound, initial sound elements have been lost pretty much. Um, I had to recreate them myself and imitate Sam in that opening sequence and do the voice of the Force and using those same tools. But yeah, it was always very, very collaborative, and there is that homemade quality to it.
Yeah, yeah. What can we expect from season 2 of Chucky? Have you seen any scripts yet? Anything other than an announcement?
I have no idea. I mean, I shoot out ideas when we're spotting, next season, she's gonna turn. No, I have no idea. And they're excited about it. Don's already pitched it. I'm sure he has it in his head. I would hope he's got his 7-season plan in place.
Sure, at least penciled out somewhere. Let me bring this plane in for a landing. I've had you for a little while, Joe. When I was a kid growing up in the suburbs of Detroit, I used to have to get up early on Saturday morning.
Wait, what suburb? What suburb? You said Wyandotte.
Oh, well, Southgate is where I spent most of my time. That's where I graduated from high school, and then Wyandotte and Woodhaven, kind of all around. So I played hockey. I played hockey downtown Detroit at Joe Louis.
I've been in all those rinks. My son played hockey.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
6 in the morning. I was there. Yep.
Well,
I know that very well.
Yeah, I sure do miss those days of loading up the trunk and getting out there and out on the ice. Not a bit. Oh, I miss them dearly up here. So on Saturday, I would have to get up early, earlier than my brother, beat him to the couch so I could get my favorite spot in front of the TV to watch the cartoons on Saturday morning. But I'd have to get up even earlier than that to beat my parents to the kitchen so I could pour myself a big bowl of sugary goodness to get through that journey, right? Yeah, so right. Joe, I'd like to know, what was your favorite bowl of Saturday morning cereal and what cartoons did you watch?
Good question. Going back ways, what was my favorite cereal? I got to take a pass on that because I can't go back that far. I know I didn't really like the necessarily chocolatey, sugary goodness ones. I mean, I was good with Rice Krispies, honestly. I was good with that, In terms of cartoons, I don't know that they were must-sees. I mean, it wasn't as though you had a lot of options in those days.
Yeah.
Right? You got what you got.
Right. But
I would say growing up, my absolute favorite would have been Rocky and Bullwinkle, because I mean, how is a 10-year-old processed the Cold War?
Right.
Mr. B.
Boris and yeah,
right.
Right. Yeah, those are really good. They were some of the funnier ones, the earliest funnier ones to my recollection, right? They had the sense of a different sense of humor than most cartoons, right?
Well, it was the adults,
yeah,
silly room. I mean, when Bullwinkle goes to college, he goes to Wasamata U.
Right.
It's who comes up with that? It was like Mel Brooks wrote that.
Almost right. Yeah. Joe, what am I missing? What do you want to make sure everybody knows about Chucky?
I just think it's. I just had fun doing the music. I think I found a lot of ways nowadays, having done horror for this long, you've got to find new ways. The audience is more sophisticated, even, unfortunately, we've been desensitized. So, you got to find new ways to create that dread. And nowadays, a lot of that's done in the computer. A lot of that's done in the box. So even though I might start with the instruments that you see around me, often you can't tell where they end up. All you know is you just feel your skin crawl. And so that's kind of, that's what makes it interesting to create the soundscapes that you can do so easily that would have been so difficult to do before we had all these toys at our disposal.
Well, season one is a smash hit. I don't know, a smash hit, a hit in my book. And I really enjoyed it. I loved your work on it. Looking forward to season 2. Maybe we can get together again when that comes out and have another chat.
It would be fun, Jimmy.
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. That's all I got for you today. So do me a favor, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you on the other side.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.